Let's face it, the RC world is filled with ready-to-runs, and yes, there are more kits now than there have been in recent past, but one company you can always count on for a kit is Tamiya, and they offer some really cool models and some really unique models, such as this one right here, the Landfreeder QuadTrack. This was a fun build kit, and it looks like it's going to be a blast to drive. Let's head over to the workbench and take a closer look at this truck. So I've already done an unboxing of this kit, so if you'd like to check out what's inside a kit box, I'll have a link up above to it as well as in the description below, and I'll have some links if you'd like to buy it or check out more information from the Tamiya website. But here I've already got it built up, and I have to say this was a fun and challenging kit. So if you're familiar with Tamiya kits, this is based off the TT02. And that's a fun kit to build up. As I mentioned in my unboxing video, they have a number of different vehicles based off of it. They have sedans, buggies, and now they have this QuadTrack truck. So this is the TT02 FT, which stands for 4-track. Now, as you can see, it has the Landfreeder body. This came on the CC01. Really cool looking body, and this one comes pre-painted. All you have to do is apply the decal and do a little bit of trimming work, and when it's done, it looks really cool. I do like this body. Love the chrome accents on the front. The light housings look really cool. They have the roll bar on the back, and you do have to cut out the decals before you apply them. Again, this is a model kit. Tamiya has you build a model, as you should, where you have to cut out the decals. But they apply really easily and obviously look good when they're done. All right, let me pull this off. We can take a look underneath. There is the TT02 chassis, and the major difference here between others that you've seen before is they now have this cover, this Lexan cover on the top, which helps protect the inner chassis from getting dirt in there, and even have these little guards in the front, so when the tracks are spitting dirt out, these little guards will basically protect the chassis and the steering here from getting dirt and rocks and debris in there. So let me go over the TT02 chassis just really quick. It's a tub-style chassis, 4-wheel drive. There are gear differentials in here. The big change, however, is they include their diff locking putty. It's kind of just a rubbery putty, so it gets stuffed in there. And if you ever want to take that putty out, you could just simply remove it. Well, not simply. It will take a while to get that stuff out of there, but you can go and convert it back to a gear diff if you want to. But it locks it up so you get positive traction out of the treads. Basically, your Phillips head screw, JIS screws, Japanese Industrial Standard screws, which is actually a really good screw when you have the proper JIS screwdrivers to go along with it. Your mix of bearings and bushings, bronze bushings, plastic bushings throughout the kit, like you would normally find in a Tamiya kit. And yes, there are bearing kits available from Tamiya or from Fast Eddie. That's who we like to use for our bearing kits here. But your standard double wishbone suspension, friction shocks, and this kit goes together really well. You can basically have the chassis, suspension, and drivetrain built in just a few hours. However, the building is really going to come down to the track kit. So the body does take a little while to decal up, but the majority of your time is going to be spent building up these cool tracks. Now, let me see where to start with these tracks. They basically bolt up with little bulkheads to the TT02 suspension that we've seen before. These blocks just attach to this carrier here, and just one thing I want to note so I don't forget is there are a bunch of screw holes in this carrier. So I'm guessing you might be able to adapt this to other kits that are out there. You can see all the different holes in that block there. So that might be coming in the future. We might see more kits with these tracks, which would be pretty cool. But basically, all your building time is going to be in these tracks. There are a lot of different screws and tons of bearings to push into the roller wheels, and it just takes time. It's not the usual Tamiya way of a couple of 3x10, 3x8 screws. There is a bunch of different hardware in these tracks, and you really have to pay attention when you're building it. The Tamiya instructions are very good. You'll get through it really easily. However, it just takes time. I hope I'm not scaring you, but if you like building, hey, it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, as I mentioned, all the rollers have their own bushings in there. They are metal bushings, and I actually prefer metal bushings in the roller, especially if you're going to go through mud and stuff like that, because your bearings aren't going to get packed with debris and stuff like that, which could cause rust or just lock up the bearing. So, you know, if you like bearings, there are kits out there that will be available for it. There is a tension rod in there, so you could tension the track. There is a C-spring in there to help tension the track, and a C-spring to help damp the track too. So you can see, let me just see if I can tilt this a little bit. You can tilt it a little bit. If you tighten down on the screws too much in here, it will bind, so be aware of that. Just keep checking everything as you build it to make sure it doesn't bind. The tracks themselves, they all have to be cut off of a parch tree, and when you do that, you have to make sure that all the little nubs left over from the tree are cut off nicely, otherwise the tracks will bind. So just little tips I want to make you guys aware of. The other thing too that's really cool about these tracks is you could build them two different ways. There's the grouser track and then the standard track pieces here. So you could build it with the grouser track on every other like I did, or you could just go and build it all flat track with these standard pieces here. So there's a couple different ways to build it. Or you could have two standard tracks and one grouser track. Again, you could kind of go ahead and tune this. All these tracks are held together with pins. You have to slide in each and every pin, so that's really a big time suck there. Actually had my buddy Mark help me out with building this kit because it took so much time. I've got a lot to do here. Big shout out to Mark for helping me with this kit. But that's really the big changes here from a TT02. It's really cool looking. They did a really nice job in building these tracks. You know, we've got the two-tone plastic here, and some people said there are two different types of plastics. They look similar to me, but you know, I just wanted to mention what other people are talking about out there. And again, it was just a fun build overall, just a little time consuming. Just be aware of your parts and you'll have a great time building up this kit. A few other things that I wanted to mention. So it does have the CR35 turn motor in there. It's a nice brushed motor that will give this truck the torque it needs to climb up all different obstacles and stuff, go through soft dirt and snow. The other thing is they have this new speed controller in here as well. It's the TBLE 04S speed controller, and basically they've gone ahead and changed up the battery chemistry cutoffs in here so you could use a wider selection of batteries out there, unlike their other speed controllers. So it's cool that they've gone ahead and changed that up. You will need to supply the rest of your electronics. I have a basic Spectrum servo in here that I pulled out of another ready to run. I'm going to use the SLT3 radio system in it. That's a nice budget level radio system. And then I'll have a LiPo battery from Max Amps to power this thing, and probably swap out the stock Tamiya connector on there, put a T connector on there. And that's really about it, guys. That's all you need to know. The shell is held on with Velcro, so if you need to access the battery, you know, that's fairly quick. 4 body clips to hold on the body. And this truck looks cool. Now we just need to see it in action. Let's head outside and have some fun. All right, driver, so I took the QuadTrack up to my favorite bashing lot because there's plenty of dirt for this thing to crawl up here, plenty of rocks to go over, and I've been driving this thing for over an hour now, and it's been an absolute blast. So why don't I throw it back down on the ground and I'll show you how much fun this thing is. climbing up the dirt mountains has been by far the funnest thing to do with this rig. It just kind of mobs up the dirt and just spits it up as it goes. It's an absolute blast to drive. It seems like nothing really stops it. Look at that. Just crawls right up. The steering radius, well, it's a little wide. It is basically like a universal chassis, so it's kind of understandable. But for crawling power, this thing has plenty of traction, plenty of torque to it. Those lock diffs seem to be working really well. It's a lot of fun. All right, let's come up this dirt mountain here. Watch it just blast through it. Yeah. All right, let's get a little side hill action in. Come on. Am I gonna roll it for the first time? Oh, we're close. Oh, I throttled out of it. All right, let's spin it around for another shot. First, I'm just gonna blast up this hill though. Watch this. Yeah. Oh yeah. Nothing's stopping it. All right, let's side hill it again. Whoa. It's a little sketchy. Oh, I just slid down. All right, I had fun in this spot before, kind of straddling the top of this mound. Come through the dirt here, around the evergreen, through the rough, a little push on the front end. There we go, through the weeds now. That's the fun part, just kind of going across the top of this mountain. Looks pretty scale, a lot of fun. And we'll go down the descent over there. Nice and smooth. Oh, hung up on the rock. That's the one thing you got to look out for, are the rocks, because of the ground clearance. Look at it. Look at it churn up that dirt. Awesome. All right, last spot to run through here. Just kind of up this mound, some loose dirt around the evergreens. Just taking a little ride through nature. Ooh, here's a little rock section here, watch this. Just slow crawl through that, a little slide on the rocks. Oh, that track bumper is caught up on this rock. Just power through it, yeah. Awesome. Guys, this thing has been a blast. Let's head back to the workshop and wrap up the review. So this rig threw me for a little bit of a loop. While I was on my way to test it, I was kind of thinking about the days where I tested the Monster Beetle TR, and it really wasn't a climber, but you know, fun on the trails. And I thought I was just gonna have to stick to trail type driving with this thing. And as soon as I put it down, it proved me wrong. This thing was an absolute blast to drive. And it was really capable as well. And I went from that flat track type of situation right to climbing hills, and it was so awesome to see this thing just churning up dirt. It did really, really well out there. So obviously I was at my favorite dirt bashing lot, and there was just tons of different type of terrain to just try this thing out on. And out there on the flat dirt stuff, I mean, just really cool. You kind of see this thing go up and over some of the bumps, and it lifts the track a little bit because of the rigid suspension on here. But it tracks really, really well, and it definitely has plenty of traction to just go up and over any little rock in its way. The only thing you gotta manage is the larger rocks in front of you. That's because it's got a low, almost sedan style chassis on here, and it actually benefits from that. The CG on it is pretty low, and the independent suspension on here, you know, works pretty well. I think it would work even better with oil-filled shocks, with just a lightweight oil in there, better than these friction dampers. but all things considering, it did pretty well out there. And the real fun factor comes in when you start crawling up dirt hills and stuff, and there is plenty of dirt hills for me to climb there. Some of them were really loose, some of them were hard packed. Obviously, it climbed up the hard packed stuff really easily and just mobbed right up those hills. The looser stuff, that's where the fun factor really comes in, because these tracks with the grouser tread on here really just starts to churn up the dirt, throw the dirt. You saw it in those slow motion clips how cool it looks. We're just kneeling down next to the rig watching it go through that stuff. It is really, really awesome. I really think Tamiya nailed it with this one. Is it like your regular off-road crawler? No, it's much different, but it is actually very capable. My only minor issue here is the steering. It's got a wide turning radius to it, but it's understandable because we've got lock diffs in the front and we've got kind of limited steering based on the chassis setup. But what I think would actually help is just getting yourself a really good high torque servo, ditching the squishy servo saver that's on there in favor of a solid aluminum arm. And I think that will help out the steering a little bit more and give you a bit better cornering when you're kind of navigating through stuff. But if you're on a big open field, dirt lot like I was, I mean, the steering is going to be just fine. This obviously isn't a race machine, but navigating those tight courses and stuff that you may want to set up, it may not really take well to those. But overall, it is a really, really fun truck. Plenty of torque from that motor. No overheating issues, even with the cover on there. The cover does keep most of the dirt out. Obviously some still gets in where the steering openings are, but just a really fun truck. Even the speed controller that is in here, I was pretty impressed with the throttle control on it. Obviously it's a ready to run speed controller, but nice smooth throttle control on the bottom end. It did, stall a little bit when I was getting hung up on some rocks and stuff, but just a little blip of power and it got through it. It wasn't jittery, so I really like the feel of this new speed controller. And that's it. I really don't have any complaints. One thing that maybe I would like to have seen is some sort of skid on the front, and maybe if there's some 3D printers out there that like to design parts, you could come up with a front skid plate for us. But this thing has just a ton of potential, I think. Would I do anything to it? Again, I'd probably throw some oil chocks on there, maybe get a bit better of a speed controller just so I could have really smooth throttle control, the better servo, throw the full set of ball bearings into the main drive line, and really just go have fun with it. It is an absolute blast. Awesome job, Tamiya. Let me know what you think about the performance of the Landfreeder QuadTrack in the comment section below. While you're there, hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell. Throw the video a like, and we'll see you back soon for some more RC Driver videos.